Buying an iPhone can be difficult. Apple does give a fair amount of choice, but with that comes the need to decide which is best for you. That can be tough, and that's why today, hopefully, I'll be able to help you out. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're going over my iPhone buying guide for 2020. If you've been around here for a while, you'll probably know how this works. We're gonna go over every single iPhone from the $1,000 plus ones to the $50 ones. And hopefully by the end, determine which one is best for you, depending on the price range and just overall value. If you want to skip ahead, I'll put timestamps in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment. But with that out of the way, let's just jump right into this and start with the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. These phones are amazing, with their best new feature being the cameras. We have 3 lenses on the back, one ultra-wide, one normal wide, and one telephoto. This phone can produce some amazing photos, and it can also take some great photos at night or in the dark, which past iPhones haven't been able to do. Also, an extremely underrated feature the 11 Pro has this year is way better battery life, at least compared to the XS, and that for me has been the biggest upgrade. The 11 Pro is great, but it starts at $1,000. Now you are getting more value than you used to, with a fast charger actually coming in the box, which would normally cost you about $40 if you bought it separately, but this is still very pricey. The phone does have an amazing display, which is why you would buy it over the iPhone 11, and before I give an answer on its value, let's quickly touch on the iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 is essentially what the XR was last year, a cheaper version of the iPhone 11 Pro. It has the same general specs, similar battery life, and even the same cameras minus the telephoto zoom lens, just with a downgraded display. The iPhone 11 starts at $700, which is, in my opinion, significantly better value than the iPhone 11 Pro, and that's why for nearly everybody I would recommend the iPhone 11 every single time. It's a great phone for an even better price, and for most people the OLED display on the 11 Pro won't be worth upgrading to. If you're concerned that the screen on the 11 might not look good to your eye, I'd recommend going into a cell phone store and checking them out in person. I think you might be surprised, because while it's not as good as the 11 Pro, it still looks pretty decent, and for the average person out there, it's gonna do great. So if you were torn between the best 2 iPhones at the moment, I would say the iPhone 11 is the better choice for most people. If you have some money to burn and want the best of the best, the 11 Pro is the one to go with, but saving $300 for a nearly identical phone in most ways is a steal with the iPhone 11. Of course, pricings might look different for you if you're gonna go through a carrier, but because numbers will vary so much between carriers, it's easy just to pull up the prices from Apple, but you are going to save money with the iPhone 11, and I think it's worth doing that. Moving down the list, we have an iPhone that Apple doesn't sell anymore on their website, the iPhone XS and XS Max. You might see some carriers here and there still sell them as they attempt to clear out inventory, and you of course can find them used or refurbished online. They seem to go for around $500 on eBay.com at least, which is fairly reasonable, although personally I don't recommend going for it. Buying used on its own is something a lot of people don't like doing, but there's a couple other reasons I wouldn't go for it. First, battery life will likely be mediocre, at least on the smaller XS, as it was never that good in the first place, and second, the iPhone XR exists. The iPhone XR is being sold by Apple on their website for $600. That's about $100 more than a used small XS for a brand new phone with a much better battery life. Now yes, you are missing out on the OLED display and telephoto camera, but I think the battery life alone is probably worth that sacrifice. The iPhone XR might be a year old, but it outsold the XS for a good reason. It's a really great phone and is an awesome pickup if you're looking for a mid-range iPhone and can't quite afford the iPhone 11. That said, if you can spend just a bit more and get the iPhone 11, I think you absolutely should, because you'll get the ultra-wide camera as well as just a better phone in general for only $100 more. The XR, whether new or used, is a really good pickup though right now, and so I don't think you'll regret it. Next up, we have 2017's iPhone X, the first $1,000 iPhone and one Apple only sold for a year. Any iPhone X you get now will likely need to be used or refurbished online, and luckily prices are fairly reasonable. Looking at eBay.com, the iPhone X seems to start at around $400, sometimes even less. The problem with buying a used phone is you don't always know what you're gonna get, and because it's a couple years old, the battery life might be a problem. If you want a cheap iPhone with an OLED display, the iPhone X is the one to get. Otherwise, I'd probably recommend looking at the iPhone XR for the better camera and battery life. Next up, we have a couple more phones from 2017 that actually are still being sold by Apple, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. This is where things get a bit interesting. Because this video is being made in January, I really don't know if these phones will stick around. Rumors say that an iPhone SE2, although it probably won't be named that, will be coming around March and replacing the iPhone 8. I would assume the iPhone 8 Plus will also be discontinued. Apparently the newer phone will look exactly like the smaller iPhone 8, but with better hardware inside. As it stands right now, the iPhone 8 starts at $450, while the 8 Plus is $550. The 8 Plus straight up is not worth buying right now, as the XR is a much better phone for only $50 more, but if you want that home button, I understand, and as of making this video, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are the only phones being sold by Apple with a home button. button. While I would recommend waiting it out until April to see if a newer iPhone with that home button comes out, if you can't wait that long or really don't want to, I can assure you the iPhone 8 is a great phone, and while it's not the best value right now, most carriers probably have deals for it pretty regularly. The phone will last quite a few more years, and it's not a bad pickup. Right now, it's the best iPhone with a home button, and so it's kind of hard to argue with that. And who knows, a new home button phone might not even come out this year. We've been tricked before. Moving to another discontinued iPhone, we have the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. Both these phones are no longer being sold by Apple, but you will still see them being sold by quite a few carriers, and of course they can easily be found used or refurbished online. It's been a while since I've recommended the iPhone 7, because for not much more you can get a better iPhone 8, and for not much less you can get a not much worse iPhone 6s. That said, if you find a deal for the iPhone 7 you can't pass up, it's still a great phone, and should have in the very least a couple more years of iOS support, although I would guess it'll get a little longer. Then we have the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. If you want one of these phones, you will have to look to get one used or refurbished, and eBay.com has them for as low as $100. That's an insane deal for a pretty decent smartphone. However, make sure you do not get one of the 16GB models. I can't emphasize that enough, as 16 gigs is not going to be enough space nowadays, even if you don't take a lot of photos or download any apps. Trust me, you'll regret it if you get it. The 6S is a good pickup if you need a budget smartphone, just be wary of bad batteries, and keep in mind it may not get iOS support past September. I personally would guess it will, but because it is the oldest iPhone still supported by updates, it may not. However, if I was a betting man, I would say it should get support until the September of 2021. Now we have the iPhone SE, which is the iPhone 6s, but in a smaller body. There are not many differences, and the big one for most will come in the price. The SE is like laughably cheap online and can be found as low as like $50, $60. Just like the 6s, do not get 16 gigabytes, but if you really need to save money, the SE is absolutely the phone to buy. It runs iOS 13 like a champ, it's insanely cheap, and honestly for $50 to $75, I don't think you'd find better on the Android side. And that is all of the iPhones currently being supported by Apple. I don't think the iPhone 6, 6 Plus, or 5s are still worth buying, as they are barely cheaper than the 6s and SE, and are stuck on iOS 12. Anything older than that is definitely not worth buying. So to sum up, I recommend the iPhone 11 probably most strongly, followed by the XR, and then the iPhone 8 is still a decent purchase, although there might be a replacement coming soon. And if you're on a budget, the iPhone 6s and SE are really good buys right now, considering they can run the latest software for very little money. I do think overall the iPhone 11 is the best buy, and it's only $100 more than the XR, so it's really hard to argue with. But again, if you're on a money crunch, the SE or 6s are really good too. Again, paying under $100 potentially to have iOS 13 and be able to download basically any app is pretty crazy, so really hard to argue with the value proposition for the SE and 6s. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, maybe hit that like button, and if you're interested in this tech type thing, maybe subscribe for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason, and with that all being said, I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.